Hi, in this video we are going to be looking at section 1.6, and 1.6 deals with the basic rules of algebra. So we're going to look at a few vocabulary terms first. We have seen that algebraic expression combines numbers and variables. An example of an algebraic expression is 7x plus 3. The terms of an algebraic expression are those parts that are separated by addition, and it could be a subtraction as well, because subtraction is the same thing as adding opposites. So for the example 7x plus 3, it contains two terms, namely 7x and 3. A term that consists of just a number is called a constant term. The constant term of 7x plus 3 is 3. The parts of each term that are multiplied are called factors of them. The factors of the term 7x are 7 and x. When we have like terms, they are terms that have exactly the same variable factors. Examples of like terms are 7x and 3x, or 4y and 9y. So there's some different rules that we can use in order to handle taking an expression and writing it simpler. So first, the commutative property is of addition or multiplication says that changing the order does not affect the results. For example, if we have a letter A to represent some number and B to represent another number, A plus B is the same thing as B times A. And also, A plus B is the same as B plus A. For the associative property, in addition or multiplication, it says that the grouping of 3 or more quantities does not affect the result. So if we add an additional number and label it C, if we have A plus B plus C, we can add the A plus B first and then add C to the sum, or we could add B plus C first and then add A to the sum. Similarly with multiplication, we can multiply A times B and then multiply that product times C, or we can first multiply B times C, and then that answer we can multiply by A. Now, to keep these two properties separate, I think of commutative property as commute, like your drive back and forth to work. You're switching places. Either you're at home or you're at work, so you're commuting. So the commutative property has them switching order. And associative property, I see associate. That's who you hang out with, who you talked to. And so you can group A or B together and associate them together first, or B and C can be associated first. And then the property that involves both addition and multiplication in the same time is best summarized in this fashion. If we have A times the sum of B plus C, it's the same as multiplying A times B and adding it to A times C. By using these three properties of algebra, we can combine like terms to create equivalent and simplified expressions. So let's look at some examples. For example 1, in each variable expression, list the number of terms, the coefficient of the variables, and the constant term. So for A, we have 4x plus 7y plus 11. There are 3 terms because we have 4x separated from 7y with a plus sign and 7y separated from 11 with a plus sign. So 3 pieces or 3 terms. And the coefficients, remember, are the numbers in front of your variables or your letters. So we have a coefficient of 4, that's with our x, and a coefficient of 7, that is with our y. And then the constant term is the number that does not have a variable with it. So our constant term in this one is 11. Now let's take a look at B. We have 9x plus 5. So here we have two terms. The 9x is being added to 15. And so for our coefficient, we only have one variable, x, so its coefficient is 9. And we have one number that has no variable, that's our constant, of 15. And so for example 2, they're asking us to identify which property is being shown. And so for A, we have 5x plus 7 is equal to 7x plus 5. Notice that the terms switched places. And so when you switch places, you're commuting from one place to another, so that's a commutative property. And for B, we have 3 times a quantity 2y plus 4 equals 6y plus 12. And so the only property that we see that uses both multiplication and addition is a distributive property. But what happens is we take that 3, remember that's the A value, and multiply it by both things inside the parentheses. So 3 times 2y gives us 6y. And also we have to multiply the 3 times the 4, and that's where we get the 12. And so that is the distributive property. And for C, we see parentheses also, but notice instead of nothing being in between the parentheses to show multiplication, we have an addition sign in between parentheses. So they're just grouping what's getting added together first. And so that's who you associate with, or the associative property. So now we're going to look at using these rules to simplify these algebraic expressions. And so for A, we have 7 times the sum of x plus 4y plus 2. So let's take this example to use the distributive property. So first we're going to do 7 times x. And then we're going to add it to what we get when we do 7 times 4y. And then finally, we're going to have 7 times 2 also being added on. And so when we simplify 7 times x, 7x, we don't have to write the time symbol in between them. And we're adding to 7 times 4 is 28, so 28y. And to that, 7 times 2, which was 14. So there we showed the 3 different multiplications. Let's do the next one without writing those steps and just doing them in our head. We have 7 times 4x. 7 times 4 is 28. So we have 28 and the x, 28x there. And then we have 7 times the 13. And 7 times 13 is 91. So that's as far as we can go. That's the simplest form. Now let's look at question C. We have 5x plus 9 plus x plus 7. So remember, like terms have the same variable. And in this case, we have 2 that have no variable. So they are like terms because they're both constants. So let's reorder these. We can do that because the commutative property. And so we have 5x, and our other term that has an x is just a single x, and we know that a single x means that there's one of them. So I'm going to put that invisible is what I like to think of it, coefficient of 1 there. So I don't forget to add 1 when I'm combining like terms. And then we have our constant of 9 and the other constant of 7. So when we add 5x plus 1x, we get 6x. If you're thinking of 6x squared, it's because you multiplied x times x. We're just combining them. So I have 5 of something, I'm adding 1 more of them. So I have 6 of those somethings and 6 x's in this case. And then 9 plus 7 is 16. So 6x plus 16 is a simplified version after we combine like terms. Now D has us distributing and combining like terms. So let's see what happens here. In orders of operation, remember you have to do multiplication before addition. So you cannot add 14 plus 2 and then distribute that answer. We have to take only the 2 and distribute it. So the 14 just gets brought down into our answer first. We can't do anything with it yet. And then we'll do 2 times 5x, which gives us 10x. And then the 2 times 1 for 2. And now we can look and see if there's like terms. And yes, there are. We have 2 constants of 14 and 2. So those combine together to get us 16. And then we'll bring down our 10x into our answer because there's no like terms with it to combine. And so 16 plus 10x is the answer. And if you write your answer as 10x plus 16, again, order doesn't matter. Here's a couple more. We have 5 times the quantity 3x plus 2, and then subtracting 4. So let's distribute our 5. 5 times 3x. 5 times 3 is 15, so we get 15x. And 5 times 2 is 10, so we have plus 10. And then we'll bring down that minus 4 and combine like terms. There's no other x terms, so 15x stays alone. And then we'll add 10 minus 4 to get 6. So 15x plus 6 is our final answer there. And then for f, we'll take our 2 and distribute it first, and then we'll start combining like terms after that. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4y is 8y. And then we'll bring everything else down first, so plus 6x minus 3y and minus 2. Can I squeeze it? Kind of. And so let's look for like terms. I have an x here, and I have an x here. So I have 2x plus 6x to give me 8x. And then we have, let's see here, next in line is 8y. And here's a minus 3y. Don't forget to keep the sign with it. So 8 minus 3 is 5, so we'll have 5y. And then the only thing we haven't taken care of is our minus 2, which there's nothing else to combine it with. And so it will stay minus 2. So our final answer there, when we combine like terms, is 8x plus 5y minus 2. Now let's take a look at some more problems like this, except for we're starting with word problems. And so we're going to have to translate it into an expression and then simplify it. So remember, break things down. The product means multiply of a number and, so the product goes where the and is. And so we have the product of a number x and 3, x times 3 is subtracted from, there's our from, that means switch order. because we have to have something to start with to be able to subtract from it. And then we have the same verbiage here a little bit with the product of 12 and a number. So and is our multiplication, because again, those, and we have a number here being x. And so a product of a number and 3, so x times 3, which we usually write the coefficient first, so we'll just switch it around and make it 3x, is subtracted from, so remember there's something to start with, so we have to kind of write it backwards. And then we have the product of 12 and a number, so 12 times x, or 12x. So now let's simplify by subtracting, since they're like terms. 12 minus 3 is 9, so we have 9x. Sorry, that locked if you heard that weird noise. My mouse did. Anyway, we have 4 times the sum of a number and 6. So notice we have 2 words that give us operations, times and sum, which means add. So we're multiplying the sum, which means we're multiplying the answer of an addition problem. So our 4 goes on the outside of parentheses to show that we have to add first. And what are we adding? A number, and so there's where our plus goes, 6. Our number, we'll use x. So 4 times the quantity, x plus 6. And so let's distribute that. And we'll take 4 times x to give us 4x. And 4 times 6 to give us 24. And so let's look at another one here. 11 increased by the product of 2 and the sum of a number and 9. And so we obviously know that 11 is there, increased by, we're adding the product of, so we're multiplying next 2 and the sum. So 2, remember the sum means we have to add first, and then the answer is multiplied by the product. So the sum is going in parentheses, and then we have a number, and is our time sign, 9. So let's translate this first. So we have 11 increased by the product of 2 and the sum of a number. Oops, I said multiply there, but that was sum, so that should be adding. Sorry about that. So the sum of the number x, and so plus 9. So before we can combine like terms, we have to get rid of our parentheses. So 2 distributes into the x and to the 9. So we'll have 11 plus 2x plus 18. And then we'll combine like terms. We have our 11 here and our 18 to be combined to give us 29 as our constant. So 29 plus 2x is what we get when we simplify. So now it's your turn already to take a look at some of these practice problems on page 31. And remember, if you are watching this because you weren't in class, you need to do all the problems and make sure that I see that you did the work, and so you can get credit for those workbook pages in your grade. If you have any questions, contact me. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.